For Bulls fans, I'm sure there are a lot of us that are looking forward to this upcoming season that is set to begin in just less than 2 months now. Whether you're a die-hard fan or not, if you enjoy the game of basketball, you're going to be excited for the start of the NBA season. At the same time, though, I'm sure there are those who really have no interest in watching the Bulls this year based on what we saw last season, and knowing that more or less the same group is going to be opening up the season on the first night. But no matter where you fall in your level of interest to see Bulls basketball starting up again, there is one thing that I can tell you, if it gives you any kind of hope for this upcoming year, that there will be a defining factor in how this team shows up this season and how it will make or break this squad, and it's what we'll be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, we've talked about the Bulls offseason, the moves they've made, the potential impacts those moves will have on this team going into the season, the areas the Bulls need to address, the biggest areas of need, etc. We've talked about it a lot, especially considering it's been a relatively quiet offseason ever since the start of free agency. But there is one thing we haven't talked about, aside from briefly touching on it when going over the Bulls' 23-24 schedule after it was released, and it's just how critical the start of the season is going to be for this team, starting out the season strong and setting the tone for the rest of the year. Now, this might sound obvious, like of course the start of the season is paramount when it comes to the impact it has on the rest of the season, but it's particularly different for the Bulls in a few regards. First of all, one of the biggest things for the Bulls this season that is going to define whether this is a successful season or not is not so much about the shooting or the interior defense or better ball movement, better playmaking. Yes, all of those things are going to be important factors, but what is going to be key for this team is sacrifice, and sacrificing on so many levels. DeMar DeRozan has to sacrifice some of his touches, not needing to put up over 20 shot attempts every night, deferring more, playmaking more, putting in more effort on the defensive end. Zach Lavine, same thing. We know he's an elite scorer. We know he can put up 25-30 easily. He's the Bulls' max player, he's in his prime, but having him accept a different role where he's operating more off the ball, working in the catch and shoot. Like DeMar, also maybe sacrificing some on the offensive end for better effort on the other end of the floor, giving guys like Patrick Williams more shots, Vucevic going to him inside more, or letting guys like Javon Carter and Torrey Craig taking more of a leadership role as veterans. Everything these guys do need to be done by committee. They need to be playing as a team and not out there for their own self-interest, stats, and recognition. No more of this your turn, my turn. No more of the, well, we're not winning, so I'm just going to do my thing now. All of that needs to end if this team truly, in fact, wants to win and be successful. Now, again, all of this can seem rather obvious, but here's how things differ if you're the Bulls and why the beginning of the season is so critical. When you start the season going into opening night, it's a clean slate for everyone in the league. Everything that happened last season no longer matters, and you're starting fresh to try and bounce back from an otherwise disappointing year. For the Bulls, meaning the players, not the front office, they know what they need to do in terms of sacrificing. They know that after a disappointing year, they need to take accountability, accept different roles if need be, and sacrifice what they're used to doing on the court. And I would hope the coaching staff has a plan for that to address what that level of sacrifice is going to look like, particularly for Lavine and DeRozan at the start of training camp. And the thing about Zach and DeMar is they're very professional players. Yes, they have egos, but they've been asked to sacrifice a lot over the course of their careers and taking on varying roles, even roles they may not like, for the betterment of the overall team. You saw DeMar do it when he was in San Antonio. You've seen Zach do it a lot throughout his tenure with the Bulls, especially when DeMar and Vucevic joined the team. They're not going to be the type of players who are going to be disgruntled in taking on a lesser role, a more team-focused role, to where they start making it known to the public and have it cause tension in the locker room with the players, coaching staff, and front office. But you know where it has happened, where the guys do start becoming more selfish, is when they play this role that the coaching staff wants and it doesn't lead to winning. You saw that play out last season. After the Bulls got off to a pretty average start last season, which turned into even more losing to when the Bulls couldn't even manage to get themselves above 500, you saw a considerable difference in how the players were carrying themselves and to where they stopped playing for each other and more just for themselves. DeMar and Zach, and even to an extent Vucevic, even at times Coby White, you saw a change in their play after the first couple of weeks of the season where they were like, hey, I'm trying to play for the team, I'm doing what the coaches need me to do, but it's not working. Other guys aren't playing team ball. I'm just going to be me and do what I want to do. I really don't care anymore because clearly the other guys don't care either. And it led to this vicious cycle where even when the Bulls would somewhat get back on track, have a nice streak of games here and there, they're playing with much better pace, much better ball movement, guys cutting to the basket, not standing around and watching an isolation play. Once that nice streak of games ended and the guys started losing again, they went back to their old ways. If the Bulls start off the season similar to how they began last year, or even worse, you're going to see the same thing from this group in terms of how they approach the game, how they operate on offense, guys not playing for each other and getting frustrated with one another, especially when the games in the loss column start tallying up. If the Bulls come out to start the season looking like a brand new, refreshed team that is winning consistently, and even when they lose as a team, playing hard and with effort, it's a higher likelihood that the guys are going to have a much easier time buying in and accepting different roles, sacrificing and playing for the team rather than themselves. Because it's easy to do so when your change in role elevates the team and you see the results that come from that. And the good thing for the Bulls is their schedule to start the season is much more manageable than it was last year, as they started off the season with the hardest schedule in the NBA. You look at their first 10 games in which they're playing 7 teams that finished below 500 last season. They play the Pistons twice, the team that finished with the worst record in the league last year, the Raptors, who aren't going to be as good as they were last season. Yes, the Bulls do also play the defending champion Denver Nuggets in Denver, but lately games in Denver have been more or less home games for the Bulls, and the Bulls swept the Nuggets last year. The Nets, they finished above 500 last season, but that was in large part due to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving being on the team to start the season. But now, the Nets, while they're still a good team, have a young, exciting core, they're still going to be rebuilding and won't be finishing where they did last season in the Eastern Conference. Now, I'm not saying the Bulls are going to go 10-0 to kick off the year, but I could easily see this team going 7-3 in those first 10 games. Then they're going to be playing the Magic twice, the Heat twice, and the Thunder and Raptors again shortly after those first 10 games. And yes, you can call it an easy schedule, and maybe we should expect the Bulls to win a lot of these games, but whether it's easy or not, all that matters is the Bulls are winning games to open up the season, which will mean the difference in how this team succeeds throughout the rest of the year. Guys will see that sacrificing works, will accept their role on the team, and when it eventually comes time to play the more elite teams, when the schedule gets a little stronger, they'll have, hopefully, already established their identity that they desperately need for this season, an identity they just simply did not have at any point in the year last season. Let me know what you guys think though. How critical do you think the start of the season is for the Bulls in making or breaking the year? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.